What is up there everyone, it's the Garden of Gamertag here, and today I want to talk about a game that I haven't played for ages and decided to go back to, and I have had so much fun with it. Now the game in question is Race Driver Grid. This was a game which sort of came from the TOCA touring car games, and it sort of branched into this game called Grid, and my god, it was such a good game. Now, I actually got it, I think a year or so late. I can't remember exactly when it was released, but I got it, and I remember actually the first time I played it was at a friend's house, and I thought it was an amazing game. Although he had an Xbox, so then I went and got it for my PS3. I know I've probably upset loads of Xbox people now, but I went and got it for my PS3. In fact, the funny thing was I rented it from Blockbuster to try it out, and then I went and bought the game, and it is such a cool game. The way that the entire racing and everything went, I mean, I played the story to start with, which it wasn't exactly a story mode, but it's kind of like a career mode. So you started by doing like the first race. There may have been 2 or so races, I can't remember, but you went through that first race, and then you got given your license for Europe, Japan and America, so you could do like these, I think they were like B class events, and you just had to go through these events, and as you did events you earned reputation, and then the reputation sort of changed how you would then get your licenses, and then you could do more events until eventually you branched into the global events. But I just thought that was such a cool idea, because if you wanted to go through the American events first, you could do that. If you wanted to do a mixture of all the events, you could. And there was always a mix of serious racing and kind of arcadey racing. You had stuff like the touring cars, which wasn't exactly, in fact the entire game itself wasn't really a serious game. The whole point of the game was it was supposed to be a good balance between arcade and simulator, and I think it did that really well, because the actual racing was really good. I thought the physics in the game, they were sometimes questionable, but then racing games aren't really particularly realistic. There aren't any that are very realistic, because they all have slight physics issues just because they're a video game, and they don't want to be impossible. Because that's another point that I've always had about games, is if you make them realistic, it doesn't necessarily make them fun. And the way this game worked, the actual racing is really good, mainly because of the AI. The AI are actually really good, because they feel like you're racing against real people, because they will make mistakes, they will push you, they will nudge you, they will then go past you. They actually overtake and drive like real players would, and that is something that I thought was really cool. The one thing that Grid has been branded on since then in sequels is it's the best pack racing game, and I totally agree with that, because the way the AI work and they interact with you is just unparalleled compared to other games. Like, I was always a fan of Gran Turismo games, but if I wanted an actual racing experience, I would always go on Grid, because the AI were just so much more satisfying to race against and actually beat. Even though they weren't impossible to beat, they were still beatable and you could beat them fairly easily. But there was more satisfaction, because you knew that if you made a mistake, they weren't just gonna like stop and let you go back into your lane. They would go around you, they would hit you if you made the mistake. And then there was also the multiplayer, which works sort of similar to the actual career mode, except that you actually had access to all the cars and all the events straight away. You could race anything. You could race Le Mans, you could race the GT3 series, you could race touring cars, you could race Demolition Derby, which I'm going to say was probably my favourite mode on the entirety of the game. Now, the first ever video game I ever played, funny enough, was Lego Racers on PC. Then in terms of console games, it was the original Burnout. And I am just straight up, I'm a master of crashing. Literally, I had a friend round, and he got about like 100,000, like a few 100,000 crash damage, and then he was like, oh, that's got to be like a record. And then he looked at my scores, and when you give a 4-year-old Burnout, you see what happens. I had like 4 million worth of crash damage, which was just insane. But Demolition Derby, it was such a cool event, because you could ram people and it had very little effect. It was just fun because you could bump people all day, and it just was entertaining to play, and it wasn't serious. You could mess around. The amount of people that I met on Grid and added as friends at the time was just unbelievable, because the amount of people that were talking on that game and just having a laugh was brilliant. And also the way the damage worked, because that was another thing. It had quite good like sort of damage to it, and if you wrecked, you were out of the race. That was the way it worked. If you wrecked, you were straight out, and so that added a different challenge to the game. But the way multiplayer also worked was that you sort of had reputation. When you finished in a position, you got a certain amount of reputation, and then you went up the ranks. So when you got a certain amount of reputation, of course, you rank up. But then the higher through the ranks you get, the higher the position you need to actually get reputation. So the people in like the elite rank, you can tell they've played the game a lot, but they're also good players because they have to finish in high positions to gain reputation. And the way you'd have it, you have like separate divisions. So you had like rookie, amateur, I think pro, expert and elite, something like that. But then you had like 3 subcategories in that, so you would go through each category, and it kind of was really fun. I was really kind of disappointed and upset that I never quite got to the elite rank. I really wanted to get there because it was something to strive for. I'd always play in a game and see people that were at these rank, people that I'd added as friends were at this rank, and I wasn't there. And then eventually, unfortunately, the online servers were taken down because they made a sequel to the game, and so they were no longer needed, and there weren't many people playing, which is kind of sad because I really did love the game. It was so much fun to play. And in the sequel they made, Grid 2, I was actually raving about that game, but I never actually bought it because it was screwed over for me by the console generation change, so I never actually bought the game. But then playing the original, I just actually decided to go and buy the most recent sequel, which is called Grid Autosport. Now, it still keeps some of the essence of the original game. It doesn't quite live up to what I felt the original game excelled with. But in all, playing the original was just such a fun experience. I absolutely love this game, and I don't think I can ever see myself disliking it, because to me it was just the perfect racing game. It was fun to play, it was rewarding, and it was a really good social game. Anyway guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. It might have been a bit long, but I just had to express my feelings about this game because it is just amazing. But anyway guys, this has been the guy with the gamer tag, and I will see you on another video.